All right, good afternoon, everybody. So I wanted to do another video real quick on mangoes, and I wanted to do a little bit more condensed version of the one that I did yesterday. And this is going to be 10 tips on growing good mangoes in the desert, in Phoenix, Arizona, and particularly in the ground. Now, this is stuff that I more or less kind of compressed from yesterday. There was a whole bunch of tips in that video, but they're kind of spread throughout the video, so I want to kind of bring it down to a little bit of a shorter video and see if I can get the 10 tips kind of squeezed in here. Now, let me also say that these are opinions of mine. I'm not a scientist. I don't really know exactly if there's some problems with the trees that it's going on, what I'm saying going on. But these are just observations because I've been growing these trees for so long, and they're my babies, they're my children. I think I've got 60 varieties of mangoes around the property, so I really keep an eye on these guys. And so, like I said, guys, this is just what I've observed. You can kind of take the information or leave it, or kind of glean from it what might apply to you and what might not. So I'm just going to give you my best opinion and my best value on how to get good mango trees here in the Phoenix area in particular. Okay, so number one, you're going to want to start with a healthy tree. So don't buy any sale trees. If there's any sale mangoes, there's usually something wrong with that tree to begin with. It's either gotten frozen in the winter, or it's gotten burned up in the summer, or it probably has a disease. So if somebody's selling a mango tree for really cheap, then don't buy it. Just don't. I know you guys like to baby things back to health. I do too, but I'm telling you, if you want to just cut to the core here, just skip them. If you see a sale tree, just skip that tree. It's usually the nursery's wanting to get rid of the tree. Why would they sell it for very cheap like that? Mangoes are very valuable. We really love the trees, and so there's really no reason to start with an unhealthy tree. Also, I usually don't buy any mangoes that have been sitting at a nursery for more than a year. So I like to really care for my mangoes, and I know how much care that each one requires, and I know that there's not enough time for any particular nursery to care for each one of these mango trees the way that they need to be taken care of, because you got to pretty much baby each one, know each one. They're really not. It's not really like a product tree, like say a citrus tree, where you can just have them sitting out in a field and growing, and it's no big deal. You can't do that with mangoes. They have to be kept. Excuse me. They have to be kept in an area where it's nice and cool, just how I have them all planted here. This is how you want to buy them for sale also. And you want it to be nice and cool underneath that tree, basically. So you want it in an area where they can be just put out really dense, where they'll all protect each other, especially if you're buying them later in the year after the summer, because these things do cook, guys. I'm telling you, it's very hard to get a mango tree that's been knocked back to its health, more or less. Basically what I'm saying is no one cares about your tree as much as you're going to care about your tree. I mean, that's bottom line. And then there's a couple things you're going to want to look for on these trees when buying a tree. You want to try to get it in good condition and look for no disease. So you're going to be looking for things like gum, like exuding from the branches or the trunk or the branch union. Look for sap or gum. That's usually gummosis, and the plant's kind of bleeding itself to death, so you want to skip those. And then try not to buy anything that has black spots on the leaf, because that's either an old form of anthracnose, whether it's dead or alive here, it doesn't really matter, or the bacterial spot. And both of those become an issue on your trees if you buy an unhealthy tree to begin with. Okay, so number two is, let's see, year number two is going to look like crap. So basically, if you're not willing to fight through year two on a mango tree, then just give up, because year two, they always look like crap. And this doesn't matter if you buy a big one or a small one or a gigantic one. As soon as you plant it in that soil, it's going to go through a shock period with that alkaline soil, and it's going to take some time to adjust. So that first year when you put it in, it's going to look beautiful, and you're going to think you're a mango expert. I got this thing looking good. It's fruiting. It's doing its thing. Next year, the soil catches up to it. The alkalinity catches up to it, and it basically, just pretend it's a blueberry, guys, and it goes through that second year shock. If you put a blueberry in the ground, look how awful they look. They always look awful because the alkalinity is catching up to those blueberries. If you can pull them through year two into year three, then they'll start to look really good, because they'll start adjusting to the soil, and hopefully you'll be adding more and more compost, more and more compost, more and more compost, which will keep it acidic to the tree, and then the tree can start to take up these nutrients that are in our soil. Okay, they need three essential metals. They need copper, and they need zinc, and they need iron. And I can kind of show you the deficiencies, what they look like as they're adjusting. I think I can find a few trees around here. I definitely find a coconut cream, because I'm telling you guys, that's the worst cultivar. If you're wanting that tree, that coconut cream, you're going to really struggle with it for the first couple of years, and then year 3 it'll start to adjust out. So I've got some older coconut creams, and I've got some newer coconut creams, and so that allows me to observe all the different trees and cultivars, which really seems to make a difference, guys. Really seems to make a difference. Okay, number 3, keep them from freezing. If you keep them from freezing, you're going to just go right into grow mode next year, and you won't have any issues. So a healthy, robust tree has a good immune system. Okay, it's very strong immune system. Also, a way to keep them from freezing is it's a microclimate. So, but it's a 2-part. So everybody likes to think about the top. They like to think about the canopy protecting the top coming down, but realize there's no canopy above these mangoes. I mean, they are the canopy. So what else is going on? Well, what else is going on is you've got the soil, you've got the compost, you've got soil life, you've got things in the soil. Those things are creating movement and energy translates to heat. And so my soil is warm from below, like a heat mat. Think about it. You guys buy heat mats for seedlings. Well, basically the same thing as compost underneath your trees is a giant heat mat in your yard that's warming from the bottom up. Now that's being trapped in and kept in by your nice canopy trees, which will keep that warmth in. So it's a twofold system. I don't know why we always look up and we just never look down. I think because it's a lot easier to look up, and down means moving soil, and soil's heavy, and we realize that and we don't want to do it, but that's just what you got to do if you want mangoes. Tip number 4 is to protect the trunk and the branches. So you see that I'm sitting under this one for a reason, because you see that all the branches themselves are shaded. The trunk itself is down there is shaded. Every branch itself is completely shaded. The only thing that's really getting any sun on this one is the top, right? Where the leaves are and where the fruit is. Everything else down below is protected. If you don't do this, you're going to cook the tree. You're just going to cook the mangoes. This is what they like, okay? They want to stay nice and cool underneath there. Now, not necessarily humid, okay? So if you keep it humid underneath there by keeping it wet so often, then you're also going to keep up the fungal diseases, which you're wanting to keep that down too, because fungal diseases, I mean, these things seem to get attacked by everything, just like a tomato does. So a lot of work, a lot of work for these. Let's see here. Protect the, paint it, wrap it, just keep the interior cool. If you want to paint and wrap it, do both. More the merrier. The humidity does keep the wood a little bit more flexible. I've noticed that. It keeps the tree from drying out so much that any kind of branches would snap, but I don't think it's worth the trade-off for the fungus that mangoes like to get. So, okay, prune them regularly. That's another thing, is nobody wants to ever cut these things down. I like to pug them, which means basically they've got a really short trunk and then they branch out. So you can see it a little bit on this one. You can see it a lot better on one over here that I've got over here. And you can see how many heads that the tree has. It's got like 50 heads on this tree. And every one of them is protecting that core down there in the center. So you want to keep it nice and cool. I mean, do you see the kind of the solar aspect that everything's getting? This long end, this is a really good example. I mean, all of its leaves are out here in the sun, and it has no issues because all of its trunk is down here and it's wrapped and kept nice and cool. Okay, let's get back over here. Okay. Let's jump to deficiencies. So deficiencies, they like to get a couple different things. They like to get iron deficient. And if they're iron deficient, they're going to have white leaves, guys. The new growth that comes out of them is going to be kind of a whitish color, a pale, sickly white, okay? So I've noticed that they need iron during that time period. If they're curly, if they're malformed, meaning they don't come out this perfect leaf. Let me see if I can find something around here. There's got to be something. Okay, here we go. So this is kind of showing showing kind of both at once. So do you see how the leaves come out malformed and they're kind of whitish? So they're kind of kinked. So they can be kinked but not white, and they can be white but not kinked, but this just so happens to show both, and this is a second year in the ground tree, so I expect this. As like I said, as the soil gets more and more acidic with the compost, then it's going to eliminate this problem, and then eventually you're going to have the nice flushes. So this is, let me show you what a nice flush looks like. This is a brand new flush here, and see how beautiful, big and beautiful and flat these leaves are, right? So this is one that you know you got fixed. This one's good to go. Beautiful big leaves, huge new leaves with no issues at all whatsoever. Do you see how clean this wood is? This wood is green, green, green. You want your stems to be green. So that's another thing I'm going to jump into real quick, because that has to do with the next one anyway, number 7, which is fungicide. So fungicide, I spray these guys 3 times a year with fungicide. I use copper. I spray them once in January, once in February, and once in March. Other people use different products, depends on what you want to use. That's the most organic thing that I can find. If you're wanting to kind of wipe out the problem a lot quicker, a lot of people use a product called Daconil, and what that does is that cleans up these mangoes really, really quickly. And what do I mean by cleanup? So let me see if I can, I don't know if the camera will focus on this, but I hope it does. So do you see how all my stems are perfectly green? Right? Beautiful green all the way back, all the way back, all the way back to wood. And then all the way to the tip. Beautiful, 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 beautiful. So I'll show you what they look like most often when they come from a nursery, and you're going to have to look for this. Okay, so this is a newly purchased tree, and this is basically any tree that you ever buy from any nursery, and it comes from Florida, okay? So it's got, let me see if I can bend the wood into where you guys can actually see it there. So do you see how it looks like somebody's rubbed charcoal on it? And you can't rub that stuff off. If you try to rub that off, it doesn't rub off because it's below the cambium layer of the tree. And this is like a sooty canker or a sooty mold of some sort. And what this does is it kills this outer cambium of the tree. So as you get further back, this is really my only example too, because I've only got this one new. But I don't know if you guys can see it on the branches. It looks like soot. It looks like somebody took charcoal and rubbed it randomly on the stem. There, that's a little better. Okay. And that won't rub off. You have to kill it off. Okay. Now, if you don't kill it off, then that's going to kill off the tree generally. So you have what usually starts as a tip dieback. They start dying back from the tips. So you want to make sure that this material on any mango that you buy, it's gonna have this. I'm just gonna tell you, it's probably gonna have this somewhere on it. It's very hard to find one that's clean. It's generally not considered a problem in Florida, but it is here because this really eats up all this cambium layer, and the cambium is what's providing all the water to these mango trees that are here in the desert. And so if you want them to look good, you got to clean them up, and you can get rid of it. You see all these new stems on this older tree are green now. You can see that it's all gone. All gone. So healthy dose of spray on these guys. Okay, tip number 8 is no foliar feeding. None at all whatsoever. If you can't correct it in the soil, please correct it in the soil. Don't try to fix it foliar. What I've noticed is it's only a quick band-aid if you can fix it. And the thing that I noticed from last year is the foliar seems to feed any kind of funguses that you have in the yard also, and kind of make them into like a super fungus. So that's something that I've been completely cutting out of my life, and that's nice because it saved me time and money, and I can correct it in the soil and make these trees look beautiful without the help of any foliar feed. Which comes to number 9, which is compost. So I used to plant these in 50% native soil, 50% my compost. What I noticed over time is that second year, yeah, they just didn't look so great. So what I've switched over to is more compost at the beginning planting. So I'm doing 75% up to 90% compost, 10% native soil. And I figured out that that works really, really well for me. I mean, I seem to get really good leaves and really good foliage and really good fruit off of these trees by doing that. And I've just noticed that the native soil, I mean, if you want to kill one real quick, put it in native soil. It may look nice in the beginning, but it's gonna wreck that tree really, really quickly. So just compost, guys. And what's nice about my yard is these things are being fed with the worm castings pretty much every day, and if not, I'm putting on more compost to feed these trees. Let's see here. So, oh, and if you're not willing to do that, if you're just, you want to fight it, I don't want to use compost, I don't want to use compost, I want to use native soil. Okay, but just telling you, you need to go buy a bag of sulfur, because you're going to be sulfuring the snot out of that soil to get that soil back to the alkalinity that it needs to be in order for the mangoes to pick up the nutrients that they need. All right, and for the final tip of the day, number 10 would be good drainage and root flare. So I like to have these guys a little bit higher. I know it's kind of hard to see right here, but you can see that flare, that nice flare all the way around. If you've got soil coming up on your trunk, then you're going to get what's called collar rot, and that's where it rots around the tree. So you want to keep that nice and clean and dry so that when it fills up, even these do, they fill up with an incredible amount of water, and then they drain away from the roots. That's the thing that dries up first. And also I have a good drainage, and you really can't help but have good drainage once you start fixing the soil and fixing the compost. So this one's looking pretty good. Looking pretty good today. So that is as best I can do for you guys as far as tips go, as far as what I've learned and what I've observed. And like I said, everybody's going to have their own experience on these plants, and this just so happens to be mine. So I hope this helps, guys. Leave any comments you have below. Thanks for watching.